Porwal, as also Sri Vishwesh Negi, Joint Secretary, Oceania and Indo-Pacific. With that, I hand over the floor to Secretary East for his initial remarks. So,
Thank you. So good evening. So as you're aware, Prime Minister will be visiting Indonesia 8th, 9th July. After that, he'll be in Melbourne, Australia for 10th July, and then New Zealand for 11th July. In Indonesia, the main place of engagement is the capital, Jakarta, but the Prime Minister will also be visiting the cultural center or historic city of Yogyakarta, where he will go to the Prambanan temple complex, where India is planning to work with Indonesia for the, which is, by the way, a World Heritage Site designated by UNESCO. So India and Indonesia will be collaborating on the conservation work there. As you know, we are still very much at the preparation stage. So it won't be possible for me to give you too many details about this visit. But what I do wish to do is to set out the context. You would have noticed that Prime Minister has been very focused over the last 2 weeks in the Western Indian Ocean region with these very successful visits to Mauritius and Seychelles. Well, now I think starting this week with the visit of Japan and the forthcoming visits to Indonesia, Australia and New Zealand, the focus has shifted to the eastern maritime zones of the Indian Ocean and our Act East engagement. Given its size and its geography, Indonesia has always played an important role for the security and stability of the Malacca Straits maritime zone. This is a very important maritime zone for India, as it represents one of the most important sea lanes of communication for India as an Indian Ocean nation, not just for India, probably for the global economy itself. I would say that the comprehensive strategic partnership that was first put in place when Prime Minister Modi visited Indonesia in 2018 has become a major building block of India's Act East policy and the Mahasagar vision over these last few years. Indonesia is also a key country within the ASEAN grouping that has been playing collectively a very important role in strengthening the rule-based order in this zone. The visit to Indonesia will be very much a continuation of the conversation on various bilateral tracks of cooperation that began when President Prabowo visited India as the guest of honor in 2025 for the 75th Republic Day celebrations. I guess the leaders will move forward the relationship will review the relationship and try and move it forward in all aspects of the relationship, particularly in the maritime cooperation dimension, in defense, in enhancing the trade and economic relationship, and of course in deepening the age-old people-to-people cultural ties that exist with Indonesia and other countries in the region. In Melbourne, the Prime Minister will participate in the third India-Australia annual summit process. Just for your background information, this is the apex level institutional mechanism that was put in place under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement of 2020. This apex level mechanism is fed by ministerial dialogue mechanisms, several of them, but in particular, defense ministers mechanism, the foreign ministers mechanism, and the trade ministers mechanism. But the conversations, I guess, will also cover emerging areas of our bilateral relations, in particular the critical minerals, the cyber security domain, supply chain resilience, emerging technologies, and so on. After Australia, the Prime Minister will be in New Zealand, where he will hold discussions with Prime Minister Luxon. You will recall that Prime Minister Luxon visited India in 2025. He was the guest of honor and keynote speaker at the Raisina Dialogue 2025. Um, and from that time, there has been a kind of inflection in our relationship, which has been gradually developed at a fairly rapid pace. This culminated in the signing of an India-New Zealand FTA um, in a fairly short period of time. Uh, the visit to New Zealand is also significant from a historical perspective. It will be the first visit by the Indian Prime Minister in 40 years. A lot of work has already taken place in developing the relationship since Prime Minister Luxon's visit, but we hope to continue that work and impart greater content to this bilateral relationship, which has to be brought in alignment with the great importance we give the Pacific Ocean region and the major countries in that region. I guess that is all I can tell you in terms of at this juncture, because we are still very much in preparation phase. If there's anything else, I can let you know.
Mhm. We'll take some questions. So Huma and then Snehesh.
So I'm Huma Siddiqui from Strat News Global. I have two questions. In Indonesia, will the ASEAN FTA be reviewed? And in Australia also, there's a trade agreement which was expected to be expanded as SEPA. So can you share some details?
So the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, I'll answer that, and then you can take the Australia one later on. It's a multilateral agreement, so it requires all ASEAN countries together. We, of course, discussed with all our ASEAN partners about the importance of upgrading, reviewing the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, which is a very old agreement and probably does not reflect the structures of the economies either in India or in ASEAN.
There's one on Australia. Vishwesh, you want to say something on that?
So, as you all aware, in 2022, India and Australia had signed the Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. Now, the effort on the two sides is to finalize a balanced, comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. This is being finalized, negotiated by the Ministry of Commerce. What we are expecting is a balanced document to be adopted on both sides, and our teams are closely engaged. We are working with the Ministry of Commerce on that. So, the further rounds of negotiations with the chief negotiators is happening soon. Thank you.
Snehesh?
So this is Snehisha from the print. Sir, on the Indonesian front, have the Indonesians reached out to India for additional BrahMos? And is India considering the request for a certain line of credit to help them purchase these equipment? And also for Australia, sir, just wanted to check if there is any progress on the uranium front. Are we expecting some progress during the current visit? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So?
Well, defense cooperation is an important part of the relationship with Indonesia. I don't think we need get into the details of this at this juncture, particularly since we haven't even departed from here, and all these are at preparatory stages.
Mm-hmm. Vishwesh, Australia?
Thank you. On the question of the supply of uranium, we are aware that India and Australia have a bilateral nuclear supply agreement. However, it has not been implemented for the last few years. And in the recent times, there have been very substantive forward-looking conversations between the two sides. And I think there is a hope that they will be a logical conclusion to the discussions.
Divya?
Sir, Divya from the Indian Express. Sir, the visit to New Zealand comes at a time when there is some proposal for stricter immigration rules, which seem to be targeted at
There.
Indian nationals. So, has the Indian side taken note of it? Will there be discussions about that?
Can you repeat that question again?
Sir, the visit to New Zealand, it comes at a time when New Zealand is proposing some stricter immigration rules which seem to be targeted at Indian nationals. So has the Indian government taken note of it? Will that be discussed during the visit? Thank you.
Sudhi, we can take two questions at a time.
So thank you, sir. Sudhir Ranjan from Bloomberg. So is there a running theme that we can, identify between the Japanese visit, the visit to Indonesia, and then to Australia and then New Zealand? Is there anything, I mean, whether it is security, and in particular, we see commitments of the United States not being very, very clear about this region?
Well, on the migration question, we are aware that there's a lot of discussion in many countries, not just New Zealand, on the whole issue of migration. But the focus of us is actually mobility. It is part and parcel of our trade agreements, and it's very important to maintain that distinction. Government of India has been trying to improve prospects of mobility for our high-skilled workers, our CEOs, our technical experts, because experience has shown us that over a period of time, hassles faced by our technical experts do create the effect of a de facto non-tariff barrier. In fact, this question was tried to be addressed in the recently signed India-New Zealand FTA. And of course, once it comes into effect, we will know how successful that has been.
Okay. Pranay?
So Pranay Upadhyay from India Today Network. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is engaging with various countries, and recently we have seen that energy has emerged as an important area of cooperation and engagement in our discussions. In terms of our Prime Minister Modi's visit to Indonesia and Australia, what are the components in terms of the energy cooperation which we are looking at, be it the fossil fuel, conventional, non-conventional? If you can highlight those things.
So I'll answer that because I forgot to answer the question on running theme. So running theme, well, I think for all our Act East policies or partnerships, we do look at trade, we do look at defense and security cooperation, we do look at the cultural connect, because that's a very important thing for us. That would be roughly the broad themes. But of course, at the same time, we deal with emerging issues like energy, like critical minerals, like depending on the country, depending on the potential, we structure a relationship in a particular way. So specifically on oil in Indonesia, I wouldn't say that that's a thing, or Australia, but certainly emerging areas involving renewables, emerging areas involving critical minerals which go into that, all these are on the table and form part and parcel of the conversations we have in the region.
Rishabh?
So good evening, Rishabh from NDTV. So one quad partner to another, are we going to discuss, since we have discussed critical minerals and rare earth minerals with Japan, Australia has been a great partner for India when it comes to critical minerals. So will that be on table, and what are India's priority on that? And when Prime Minister is in Indonesia, will Sabang port be discussed, its commercial viability and further usage? Where are we on that?
So he can reply the Australian.
So on Australia, in terms of partnership in the sector of critical minerals, we already have an institutional mechanism on that. The idea is to take forward, include how we can further intensify the efforts of both sides in terms of new investments. That would be part of the agenda of the talks between the two leaders and all. And our expectation, as I said before, was to have further movement in this important sector for India, critical minerals.
On the Sabang port, of course, connectivity with Indonesia, particularly maritime connectivity, is an important focus area because it helps trade, it helps the connections that we wish to develop with Indonesia. Sabang port was one such project. We have a task force comprising of expert and line ministries of both sides working on the project. We continue to work on the project, but I cannot report any specific breakthrough or major. Some amount of connectivity is already happening, and we are trying to develop that further because it is a important project and it is something that was discussed, I think, several years ago at the highest level. So that's a work in progress.
Siddhant.
Hi, sir. Siddhant from WION. So what will be the diaspora component during the three-nation visit? We have seen posters of Prime Minister's mega diaspora event in Melbourne. So if you can perhaps highlight that in all three countries.
Well, as you know, the Prime Minister, the demand from the Indian community is always so strong that it's become an almost standard feature of all his visits. There will surely be, because there is a significant diaspora in all three countries that he's visiting. So there will certainly be a diaspora component. It will, of course, be formatted differently in different countries.
Thank you, Secretary Keshav Padmanabhan with the print. I just wanted to circle back onto ITIGA because of the 10 countries of ASEAN, it was told earlier on record that multiple countries have not maintained the 80% liberalization of tariff lines, and one of them is Indonesia. Given that this is an important ask from India that has consistently been raised over the last 4 years since the review has been going forward, is this on the agenda? Is there a position that India is taking on this to sort of nudge Indonesia, given how good the ties have been over the last years, to sort of ensure this 80% liberalization of tariffs so that the review can move forward?
Well, my understanding of the ITIGA is that it's a multilateral. So different countries are meant to give tariff concessions at different levels. That was the initial agreement. The review process will try and bring about greater liberalization on both sides. But mind you, this is a multilateral agreement, so it will be everyone together. We do have continuous conversations with all the significant economies in the ASEAN region, because naturally the negotiations with them will be critical in getting the review process through. But simultaneously, we are also pursuing an upgradation of ties bilaterally, which is again a continuous process. So beyond that, one can't say very much, especially when discussing an agreement that requires negotiating with all 10 people at the same time.
Krishna Mohan.
सर कृष्ण मोहन शर्मा भारत एक्सप्रेस से एक सवाल जो एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोड्यूस को लेकर जो हमारा एक्सपोर्ट इंपोर्ट होता है ऑस्ट्रेलिया और भारत के बीच बहुत अच्छी सहमति ECTA एग्रीमेंट के बावजूद भी नहीं हो पाया है, तो क्या हमें लगता है कि इस बार जो विजिट होगी उसके बाद ये बैरियर्स खत्म हो जाएंगे?
विश्वेश.
थैंक यू. आपका जो क्वेश्चन है काफी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है, पर ये जो सारे एलिमेंट्स है, ये जो सीका का नेगोशिएशंस हो रहा है ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ, उसमें शामिल है. तो जब उसका फाइनलाइजेशन होगा कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन अरेंजमेंट का, तो उसमें एक सेपरेट पोर्शन है इन टर्म्स ऑफ जो हमारा टेक्नोलॉजी एग्रीकल्चर में और जो उसका एक्सपोर्ट इंपोर्ट आदान प्रदान वगैरह, तो वो उसमें होगा एड्रेस. अभी विजिट में तो बेसिकली उसको एक पुश मिलेगा एक तरह से सीका नेगोशिएशन. Thank you.
Sahil.
Sir, I'm Sahil from ENI News Agency. Wanted to know about this during the conversation between India and Australia. Will this a sudden visa cap and rejection of Indians for Indian students? Will that be also discussed while they will bilateral?
Thank you.
Okay.
उमाशंकर सिंह इंडिपेंडेंट जर्नलिस्ट। बहुत सारे भारतीय छात्र जो हैं वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया जाते हैं पढ़ाई के लिए, लेकिन पिछले कुछ 2-3 सालों में वीज़ा फ़ी में काफ़ी बढ़ोतरी हुई, तकरीबन 250% वीज़ा फ़ी बढ़ाया गया और यूनिवर्सिटी ट्यूशन फ़ी भी जो है वो बढ़ा है। तो क्या ये भी एक डिस्कशन का पार्ट होगा प्राइम मिनिस्टर जब वहाँ पे होंगे?
Vishwesh.
Thank you. I think it's a very important question. Australia remains a very popular destination for Indian students. As you know, more than 100,000 Indian students are there at this point of time in various colleges and institutes. We are aware of the concerns of the Indian students facing delays in approval of the student visa applications, including various other aspects for their as part of the process of admission. We continue to remain engaged with the Australian government to ensure that visa process for Indian students does not reduce opportunities for genuine students and also professionals actually to move from India to pursue their interests there in Australia. So we are engaged with Australia on this issue, and it will be part of the discussions between the two leaders, of course. Thank you.
Kunal.
Kunal Dutt here from PTS. So 3 very pointed questions on the 3 countries. For Indonesia, sir, you in the beginning you mentioned that there will be a cooperation in the conservation sector, especially for this UNESCO World Heritage Site. So is there going to be some MOU signed during the visit? That's if you could share with us, sir. And the modality of the cooperation, will ASI work with this project or will it be a multi-agency project? On the Australian front, sir, this visit also comes days ahead of exercise Pitch Black, which is a very flagship air exercise in Australia. And India, of course, participates, Air Force participates in it. So what would be the defense component of our talks? And can we expect some outcome in terms of concrete agreements? And finally, for New Zealand, so you mentioned it's the first visit of an Indian PM in nearly 40 years. So who was the last Prime Minister from India to visit New Zealand, sir? Thank you.
The last question first. If I recall, it was Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. It was as far back as that. On the Prabhanan temple complex, of course, when we participate, our lead tends to be the ASI. I don't want to get into the details of how that is going to be structured, because as I told you, we are still in preparation stage. We are still having discussions as we speak on signing various agreements. So I leave it at that.
Vishwesh.
Yeah. Thank you. On the question of cooperation in defense between India and Australia, that has emerged as one of the key sectors of our bilateral cooperation in the last few years. The scale and frequency of engagements between the militaries and the defense officials have risen exponentially in the last few years. Recently, we had the Australian Deputy Prime Minister, who was also the Defense Minister. He had a very fruitful meeting with our Minister of Defense. I think our expectation is that when the leaders meet next week, we would be able to further expand our cooperation in newer areas of defense collaboration. Thank you.
Neeraj.
सर नमस्कार, मैं नीरज दुबे प्रभा साक्षी से। सर क्या इस दौरे के दौरान भारत ऑस्ट्रेलिया रक्षा सहयोग को ऑकस या अन्य पश्चिमी सुरक्षा व्यवस्थाओं के साथ किसी स्तर पर जोड़ने पर भी चर्चा संभव है?
इसके बारे में तो अभी भी बताया इन्होंने रक्षा संबंध के बारे में। खैर विश्वेश आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे?
नहीं, अभी ऑकस पे तो ऐसा कोई मेरा वो पॉइंट नहीं है। एंड आई हैव ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन कि जो हमारा इंडिया ऑस्ट्रेलिया का कोऑपरेशन डिफेंस में जो है वो वही है।
Awad.
Thank you, sir. Wael Awad from Rail London. Actually, you spoke of the cooperation in the economic cooperation and the collaboration on the investment and also on the cultural part. But if I wanted to take the further discussion, sir, I wanted to know about the India ascertain its position in the Indo-Pacific region? How do you see India role in the structure of security arrangement in Asia Pacific, especially after the Strait of Hormuz problem and the war created in West Asia?
Well, that's a difficult question. But see, we do a series of engagement in as part of our Act East policy with multilaterally as well as bilaterally. And the general idea is to ensure that international maritime law, international norms, and a rule-based maritime order is preserved in all contiguous maritime zones to the Indian Ocean, because we are an Indian Ocean country. This is our approach. So engagement with countries like Indonesia, uh, our engagement with the ASEAN platforms and ASEAN-led platforms, our engagement with Australia, our engagement with New Zealand are all underpinned by this thought process. So one of your colleagues had asked a question of what is the underlying thematic with all our engagement. This is an underlying thematic in all our Act East engagements. They take various forms depending on who we are engaging with.
One last question. Arjus.
So small clarification, you said that the Prime Minister will be in Indonesia on the 8th. So I imagine he would leave on the 7th. And secondly, is there an event at the Melbourne Cricket Ground with former Australian cricketers where the PM is likely to be present?
Thank you. Prime Minister, along with the Prime Minister of Australia, will be participating in a showcase sports event at the MCG. That would also involve showcasing few of the sporting events from both countries, and it will be followed by a lunch. And there would be some esteemed sports people from Australia, personalities from Australia, and so that is the whole idea of the sports engagement in Melbourne in the MCG ground.
Kya?
Will be in Indonesia on the 8th.
No, 6 तारीख को जा रहे हैं. You will get the details in the press release that we are about to issue. So 6th we are leaving. 6th, 7th, 8th is Indonesia, and from there on to other countries. क्या नीरज? इसको स्पेशल सवाल है? चलिए.
सर, नीरज हूँ न्यूज 18 इंडिया से। खालिस्तान समर्थकों की गतिविधियां ऑस्ट्रेलिया में हाल के वर्षों में बहुत बढ़ी हैं। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी के दौरे पर जा रहे हैं और ऐसे वक्त में जब पिछले साल इंडिपेंडेंस डे सेलिब्रेशन के मौके पर वहां खालिस्तानी समर्थकों ने हंगामा किया था, तो ऐसे में ये मुद्दा कितनी मजबूती से भारत उठाएगा ऑस्ट्रेलिया के समक्ष?
And with well, in all our international engagements, whether it is multilateral or whether it is bilaterally, I think it's on record that we take very, very strong positions against terrorism and violent extremism. Okay, there's no doubt about that. We do feel that the international community has to be continuously reminded that terrorism and violent extremism remain a serious threat to international peace and security. We also have to repeatedly repeat ourselves that terrorism is really nothing short of a crime against humanity. These are discussions we have everywhere, including with our very close partners. So you can take it for granted that this happens wherever we go. I am quite confident that the countries the Prime Minister is visiting, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, have equally strong views on the issue of terrorism and violent extremism.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of this press briefing. Thank you very much.